Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this important webinar on regenerative agriculture programs in Europe. We will be focusing particularly on the perspectives of farms regarding the participation in these programs. And this is an initiative that has been a collaborative effort from NTT Data and Ipsos-bva, bringing together insights from both organizations to better understand the landscape of regenerative agriculture and what farmers think about it. We appreciate your presence and look forward to an engaging session. Let us introduce myself, and now I invite my colleague Nicolas to do so.
Thank you, Evgeny. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicolas Pogel. I'm a research associate manager at Ipsos, and it's been 10 years around that I've been working in the Ipsos agriculture team. And I'm an agronomist by formation, specialized in ag markets and marketing.
Thank you, Nicolas. On my side, I'm a director with more than 11 years of experience in management consulting within the Agri-Business Hub within NTT Data, the thing that is dedicated to everything agriculture. So let me introduce the contents of this session. We'll be briefly introducing our companies. Then we will start with the objectives of our research, the motivations behind it, and it will be the place where we show what are the pressures really being faced by farmers today. Afterwards, we'll present an overview of the current status of regenerative agriculture programs, followed by insights from our study on farmers' awareness and engagement. Finally, we will conclude with the findings and recommendations for enhancing these programs. So I would like to introduce our companies. So here, Nicolas, let's go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm presenting here Ipsos, which is now Ipsos-bva. I don't know if you have been aware, but we have recently acquired the company BVA, which is another market research company, hence our new logo and our new name. So Ipsos is an independent company. We have been founded in 1975, and we are present globally in 90 markets and more, and with 18 and more employees. So at Ipsos-bva, our objective is really to deliver really reliable information for a true understanding of society, markets, and people to help the world make better decisions. And of course, this applies to the farmers' markets and agriculture markets, with our team aiming to provide our clients with the best understanding of the agriculture markets, and what are the farmers' challenges, what they do, what are their needs, and help our clients make better decisions on the agriculture market. So we are present here on many areas and many ag sectors, from the seeds to the crop protection to the services, the machinery. We provide all kinds of studies, from the qualitative, quantitative studies, but we also provide data science, market studies, AI-based market studies, from communication tests to concept tests to segmentation, to also brand health trackers. And we interview all types of targets, from farmers to consumers to also professionals in the market, like in the distribution sector or food processing companies as well. So all wide range of companies that we can interview. So if you have any business question, we probably can answer it alone or with our partner NTT Data. So Evgeny, go ahead.
Thank you, Nicolas. So for that introduction, on our side, NTT Data, which belongs to the NTT Group, which is a global communications company that has more than 300,000 employees. And in the case of NTT Data, a global consultancy firm that has more than 100,000 employees all around the world. Our main area of expertise is as a global IT service provider, with a very strong focus on consulting and digital transformation. Within this company, as I said, I belong to the management consulting team, and particularly to the Agri-Business Hub that goes from agri-input companies to downstream companies such as traders and biofuel producers. Our main lines of work include the development of business strategy, positioning sustainability as an enabler of business and commercial strategies, and the development of new business models and transformation projects. For this, within this agri-business hub, we count with a team of more than 50 specialized consultants and also an extensive network of partners, as we've seen in these presentations. So what I would propose now is that we review what are the objectives that we pursued with this study and how we did it and where. So the objectives are to analyze the current landscape of regenerative agriculture programs and to understand farmers' perspectives on their participation. We believe this is especially relevant because throughout our latest experiences within this field, we haven't seen that much the opinion of farmers being captured and really applied to this field. So what we are trying to do is, based on these insights, we want to offer to the industry practitioners relevant inputs to understand what is the current state of the market, changes that we believe that current programs need to implement because farmers are demanding it, and more broadly, how the market can be grown both in terms of the environmental benefits it generates and the economic value it delivers. To reach these conclusions, we've analyzed both the supply and demand side of the equation, and especially from the NTT data side, what we've done is analyze more than 100 programs operating in Europe, mainly the countries that now Nicolas will present, that are offered by a very diverse array of players. We've looked at their definition of regenerative agriculture, the practices they promote, and the benefits they offer to the farmers. And then with the help of Ipsos, we've complemented this, as we said, with the view of the farmers.
So on the demand side, we did a market research survey, and we interviewed more than 200 farmers, 50 farmers per country in the scope, and you have the 4 countries on the right that we interviewed, France, Spain, Poland, and Romania. It was a digital survey, a short digital survey of 5 minutes around, using web intercept media method on social media. So if you need more information on this methodology, please contact us and we'll get you more information. And this survey aimed mainly to assess the ag program awareness and participation and see what kind of practices they are adopting today and what kind of Regen Ag programs they are adopting today. So why this country, why this scope? Because we focused on specific crops, the wheat, barley, grain corn, silage corn, soybean, oilseed rape, vegetable and fruits. And these 4 countries represent around 50% of the agricultures in Europe in terms of these crops. So this is why we are calling it 50% adoption potential, and it allowed us to have a good view on the maturity of the market and adoption levels of each farmers in terms of on these countries, and enabling us to have a more comprehensive and well-rounded analysis here.
Thank you, Nicolas. So what we would like to review now is what was the motivation behind this study. Our ultimate motivation is to offer a better reward to farmers for the services they provide to combat environmental pressures we all face. But why we believe this is especially relevant now? Because what farmers are living is the urgent need for a strategic turnaround, something that we encounter in other businesses, but it's especially relevant now for farmers. Why? Because their revenues are falling, the value chain stakeholders are gaining increasing bargaining power, and external factors such as economic fluctuations and regulatory changes are creating a climate of uncertainty for them. Today, farmers are under immense pressure to adapt their practices to meet evolving environmental standards while managing tight profit margins. The urgency for sustainable practices has never been more critical as farmers navigate the complexities of, for example, soil degradation, climate change, and these mounting economic losses. Regulatory demands also that are trying to make them decrease the greenhouse gas emissions they produce, and then finally some of the market dynamics. Our study, given this motivation, aims to shed light on these pressures and explore how regenerative agriculture can serve as a viable solution for farmers seeking to enhance their resilience and sustainability. So, and having understood this, let's see some of the base stats that we have got from the survey and that Nicola will present.
Thank you, Evgeny. So one of the main key insight that we got from this study and market research study is that Regen Ag programs and also Regen Ag practices are no longer niche in a term that it's more and more adopted by the farmers. And it's likely becoming more larger trend that we are seeing today on the agriculture markets, and that will likely change quite some, a lot of different trends in the market. So the first one being the practice adoption. We are seeing that a lot of practice have been widely adopted by the farmers, and you are seeing here the three first ones that we are that are the most adopted by the farmers, being crop rotation by 63% of the farmers, managing crop residues sustainably 55% of the farmers, and minimizing soil disturbance 50% of the farmers. Of course, these adoption practices will vary from country to country because of the transition difficulty of adopting those practices, the local regulations that may or may not favorize this adoption, and also very specific farm-related factors that may or may not allow farmers to adopt those practices. But some quite good rates of adoption right now. We are also seeing a lot of participation from the farmers on Regen Ag programs. It's around 1/3 of the respondents who have already participated in Regen Ag programs. And we also asked the farmers who are currently are participating in those Regen Ag programs, how many hectares are actually engaged in such programs, and there's quite some share already, with 39% of their total acreages that on average is engaged into Regen Ag programs. And we are seeing that wheat and canola farmers are the ones who are using it more consistently as well. And there's a good potential also in the future with more farmers that are willing to participate in Regen Ag programs and enroll some of their acreages in those. 88% of growers are considering enrolling those acreages, at least 1% of their acreages in the programs. So some good expectations for the future for such programs, and it shows their willingness to try it. And finally, the last point is that we are seeing diverse market stakeholders currently on the market of the Regen Ag programs. And this is coming from, of course, the NTT data research. We are seeing many players in this market, from food value chain players to startups to NGOs. They have some different approaches, but they are also sharing common elements, and we have some elements below. With the food value chain players, for instance, that are really trying to favorize all the specific practices and adoption. So they are favorizing adoption of practices such as crop rotation, for instance, and this is what we will call practice-based programs. In the other hand, we have the startups who are more focusing on the results and the environmental impact of such adoption, like carbon reduction programs and what we will call outcome-based programs. But all of them are trying their best to reduce all the adoption barriers that we can have on those practices and those Regen Ag programs adoption. And they are also providing also support, both technical and advisory. So to summarize a bit, this slide is that we have more and more programs proposed to the farmers with tools, knowledge, incentives, and that it can favorize the adoption of sustainable practices, Regen Ag practices. And we have more and more farmers that are adopting those practices and adopting Regen Ag programs. So it's more and more crucial to, in this rapid evolving environment, to know more and to know how to optimize the design of the program, the scope, their effectiveness. And that's what we'll see in the next slides.
Thank you, Nicola. As you just pointed out, what we want to now discuss is the current and future value of this regenerative ag program. What we have found through the data obtained in this study is that there might be already around 12 million hectares that are somehow engaged in some form of regenerative ag program within the European Union. This is extrapolating the numbers that we have for the 50% of cropland that we've captured through our study, which these 12 million would represent as a bit more than 10% of all cropland in the European Union. But if we assume that around €4 of value are generated per hectare right now, that would result in this market of 50 million euros. However, as you have seen, there are 40% of farmers that are already nowadays are willing to enroll part of their farm in this program, showing a great potential for growth. And if we apply this to future, if we project this into the future, what we would see is expanding participation in regen programs, mostly through the inclusion of these farmers that are either already implementing some of the practices and are both willing to get enrolled, and also by improving the per hectare value that these programs have, especially with one very key lever, which is improving the asset integrity that is being generated, either in setting, offsetting, or any other type of asset that is linked to this land. And very especially by including biodiversity-related practices into the mix, the market size could grow 20-fold from now until 2030. This means that there is both a significant economic and environmental upside by expanding the adoption of sustainable practices, and also there is this economic upside of having more support for farmers and better, and also in the increase of the value of the produce that these farmers bring to the market. So having understood this, what I'm now pass back the floor to Nicola for him to illustrate on what are the misalignments that we see between supply and demand, that if addressed would pave the way to realize the projected value that we just showed.
Thank you, Vinny. So a few points here in order to indeed improve the programs actually. So 5 points. The first one is that we are seeing some adoption gaps between what are proposed and what is incentivized by the programs and what is actually adopted by the farmers. We have some small gaps for some practices like the crop rotation that we are seeing that is adopted by 63% of the farmers and proposed and incentivized by 69% of the programs. But we have also other practices like cover cropping, where we are seeing a significant gap between what is done by the farmers and what's proposed by the programs. So 45% of the farmers are currently adopting it, and 83% of the programs incentivize this practice. So quite some gaps between what's done and what's actually proposed by the programs. We are also seeing some differences between what is proposed in terms of Regen Ag programs, in terms of startup versus, for instance, valuation players. The startups are the ones who are more aligned with what the farmers need in terms of incentives. We are seeing an average 6% gap between what farmers want in terms of incentives and what the programs are proposing in terms of incentives. And for the value chain players, the gap is wider with 28%. They are primarily focusing on direct monetary incentives from the farmers, either through premium prices for their crops or either cost savings when buying the inputs. So this is one way to also improve the programs. Third point is the administrative and technical burdens. We are seeing in many studies currently, not this one, but also other that Ipsos have done as well, that the administrative burdens is one of the key difficulties that the farmers are facing. So the idea here as well is to facilitate all those administrative and technical burdens And we are seeing on this study as well, again, that this requires the administrative workload, required some higher efforts for the farmers that actually transitioning and adopting the Regen Ag practices. This is the rates that we have here on the screen, from 0 to 10 on the scale. And on average, it was pointed out that the administrative workload is 6.3 out of 10 for the effort for the farmers, and 5.9 out of 10 for the transitioning to ag practices for the farmers. So very different. It's easier to adopt the practice than to have to report it. And then the fourth point is the preference for economic incentives from the farmers. They are valuing mostly and primarily the direct incentive that they can get, either through selling their crops in higher costs, higher priced, and or saving the cost when buying inputs. And these are the two main incentives, two first incentives that they are looking for, and only 19 to 39% of the regional programs propose these kind of incentives. And finally, there's also some untapped market potential. We are seeing that there is some gap between adoption and the programs and what they incentivize. So there's a great potential, especially for the practices aiming to enhance the biodiversity and the ecosystem resilience, that are only used by 25% of farmers, are adopted by 25% of the farmers, and 63% of the programs require them in order to incentivize the farmers. So there is room for improvement, and there is a lot of room to develop the practices of the farmers. So in order to indeed accelerate the adoption of the Regen Ag programs, they must for sure more adapt to the farmers' priorities, what they are looking for in terms of incentives, what are their practices, reduce, of course, the administrative burdens, or at least not have too much administrative workload to add with the adoption of the Regen Ag programs, and offer, of course, more practical and incentive-aligned support to what the farmers' needs and are looking for.
Further, thank you, Nicola. And with those conclusions, and here we will be reiterating on them a bit, what we want to show is what are the findings and recommendations that we take out of these conclusions that Nicola just presented. There are clear avenues to extend the impact of Regen Ag programs and increase the value they generate, both in terms of improved farmer livelihoods and higher produce value. The first is technology, which can have a double effect. The first one that we see, which is tailor Regen Ag implementation to the needs of the farmer and his or her land, enhancing the environmental benefits and the return on investment. And the second, which is reduce the administrative and technical costs. This would address one of the main barriers for the adoption of such programs, the administrative burden that we have repeated several times already. Novel solutions that reduce MRV and compliance costs will open the gates for many more farmers to join. Then, in terms of raising the quality of interventions, the main lever is to value actions linked to biodiversity gains, including them in the insetting and offsetting assets already being generated. We don't advise yet to look for standalone biodiversity credits, not in the at least in the midterm, due to a lack of adequate MRV systems for that. And then finally, on individual level, the programs could benefit from a better alignment between their benefits or their value proposition and the demands of the farmer, from general preference for economic incentives, and then to the need of tailored offerings, for example, for fruit and veg farmers. Then, in summary, the main message that we want to transmit with our presentation today, we think is clear. Regenerative agriculture offers a viable path forward for farmers to face the current challenges they have. By focusing on the farmers' perspectives and adapting programs to meet their needs, we can foster greater participation and drive meaningful change, both in the agricultural landscape and then downstream in the distribution and consumption of the produce they bring to the market. With this collaboration between NTT Data and Ipsos-bva, we think we are helping to shape these programs to align them better to the realities of farmers today. Then I would like to have some closing remarks. These conclusions will be published soon in a paper that will be available on our website, and it will have some more detail in everything that we have presented. The other and very important part is that we will welcome any questions that you may have, and please feel free to contact any of us through the emails that you see on the screen. We look really forward to engaging with you further on this important topic. And then finally, the only thing that is left to say is thank you for your participation. Your engagement is vital as we work together to advance regenerative agriculture. And of course, we appreciate your time and the questions that you transmit to us. And we look forward to continuing this conversation in the future. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.